Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited that you guys are joining in again. This may not be a long video. I don't know. This is the beginning of the video, so things may change. We'll see how it goes. But thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Thank you so much for watching the videos. And thank you so much for sharing them. I know that this is a tough conversation, but I know it needs to be had. And this is a conversation starter that we can obviously enter in to conversations with our friends, our family, coworkers, bosses, employees. You know, it's a great starting point. So thank you again. So today I actually want to touch on a bit on implicit biases and what that means. Our next video we'll have a treat with a friend of mine who's an educator who we're going to talk about implicit biases, what she's seen in her field of education. So I'm super excited about that. Okay, so I want to touch on implicit bias and what implicit biases are. And the thing about implicit biases is implicit biases don't always have to be about race. Implicit biases can be about someone's weight, height, lighter skin versus darker skin, pretty much meaning an unconscious bias, stereotypes, things like that. But I want to give you a definition of implicit bias, and I want to make sure I do it correctly. So an implicit bias is thoughts or feelings that are implicit if we are unaware of them or mistaken about their nature. We have a bias when rather than being neutral. We have a preference to a person or a group of people. Thus, we use the term implicit bias to describe when we have attitudes towards people or associate stereotypes with them without our conscious knowledge. A fairly commonplace example is often seen in studies that show white people will frequently associate criminality with black people without even realizing that they're doing it. And so pretty much what an implicit bias is a stereotype, or you already have a mindset of someone about their weight, about their race. Let's use this as an example. So an implicit bias would be a person who is overweight is unhealthy or doesn't work out. Well, that's a bias. You're associating what you see of them and associating what we're probably told or what we have in our minds that this person is this way. It's the same thing with race. Our implicit biases could be if we see a black person with a hoodie on, just as an example, that they're probably up to no good. Or if we see a person that has on a suit, we can think something of them as well. The person with the suit may be up to no good, or maybe the person with the hoodie may just be, with a hoodie. Maybe it's cold outside. And so those are implicit biases. They're automatically something that we have in our mind about people without even realizing it. And it's important that we talk about those things and work on those things. Implicit biases can obviously be racist. They put up this wall between us and other people where we may not associate ourselves with them, or we may not maybe give them the benefit of the doubt where we would give someone else the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, society does a good job of drawing the picture for us. We can look at news media outlets, and you will see a news media outlet that may show a victim, but show the victim's mugshot in some cases because they're trying to paint a picture for you. Or we can see posts on Facebook. There's a post that I saw that I'll pop in here. So it says this: when a cop kills someone and when a drug dealer kills a 7-year-old girl. This is an implicit bias. Here's why. It paints the picture of only black people destroying a police car. And then it paints the picture of black people doing something bad. When we obviously see a lot of races that are involving themselves in the current situations of, the current climate of our country. But this is a perfect example of an implicit bias. It shows us or tells us a specific story. How do we work? How do we change? What do we do? How do we move forward? How do we go about changing those biases? What can we do? What can we implement into our lives that changes those biases? These are things that we have to actively work on. And so we've built over the years stereotypes and biases in our mind, but what do we do to actively get rid of those? What do we do to actively stop those biases from taking place in our minds? And there is a few things that we can do. So the first thing we can do is being self-aware. The first step to recognizing that you have a problem or that there is a problem is admitting it. Look, I've had to look in the mirror as well with a lot of things, implicit biases that I had in my own mind and in my own heart. It is looking in the mirror and saying, wow, there are stereotypes that I have in my mind that I need to get rid of. I'll give you a story. I was in a Target one day, and while I was in the Target, this person came up to me, and she was very sweet, older lady, and her first question to me was, do your kids have the same dad? And I know that's a stereotype, right? Like, it's a stereotype that Black women are maybe single mothers, majority of us, and that we're not married, that our kids may have different fathers. That is an implicit bias in her mind that she had, that she assumed that my kids did not have the same dad. The question that came after was I married to their dad? I don't know why any of this was relevant, but she asked the questions. Those, like I said, are implicit biases that we have in our mind. That majority of Black women are unwed mothers. That majority of white people are racist. That majority of anything, that we put our biases onto other people. The second thing is understanding the nature of the bias. Are we willing to, again, look inside of ourselves and maybe catch ourselves in the act of being biased, stopping ourselves, even having, some self-reflection of what our biases are. If you see a Black man, in a sense, walking down the street, what is your first thought? Obviously, the politically correct answer would be, I would just think he's a normal person, but we have to be honest with ourselves. Are we truly thinking that? Or are we just saying that so that we don't come off a certain way? And honestly, the third thing, is just being open to speaking with other people. So I am very vocal on my Facebook page. And I do talk a lot, but the beauty of it is I always pray that it does open doors. And I've had the privilege of being able for people that don't look like me to be open with me about their biases. And I mean, it means a lot, and I don't take offense to it because I know that these are things that we're taught. These are things that we learn as we grow. As we grow up, people are teaching us these things. We're learning these things. We're consuming these things, that this is what a criminal looks like. This is what this person looks like, or this person looks like. And we start to ingest, right? Those biases, start to always have them. So that way, when we think or when we see someone that may fit that stereotype, we automatically label that person. And honestly, the last thing would be trainings. There is a test that Harvard came out with, and it is an implicit bias test. The thing I love about this test is that it actually has different types of implicit biases. So disabilities, race, lighter skin to dark skin. And so some hidden biases that we can kind of recognize in ourselves, just a few examples, is if we don't befriend certain people. Just by nature, we're automatically drawn to people who are like us, people who look like us, right? It's comfortable. We don't really have to break down a lot of barriers. We can relate more. Another bias is overlooking or dismissing someone's pain. I know there's a lot going on in our country right now. Race is a difficult topic. It's hard to talk about race, and it's so easy to try to dismiss someone's pain. It's hard for us to empathize because this is something we don't want to hear. It's something that's hard to hear. And honestly, unconscious body language or voice tone. I'll give you an example. So there's a thing in the, I don't know if everybody does it. Well, yeah, everybody does it. So there's a thing, right? It's called code switching. I'll explain. So what code switching is that when you're around a certain group of people, you, let's say, talk one way, and then when you're around another group of people, you'll talk another way. So there may be times where I'm just, hey, I'll be the first one in the example, okay? There may be times where I may be going into a store or trying to order something or buy something. And honestly, if I see, I mean, I talk this way all the time, but maybe I won't use slang. Maybe I won't use, I won't say certain words or do certain things that may make me come off as too stereotypical. And two, it's happened to me where people would come up to me, or I'll be in a store, I'll be buying something, and immediately it's like, hey girl, what you doing, girl? You know, like, it's code switching. You know, how can I be more appealing to this person if I speak or say something like them? I'm switching who I am. I'm switching what I would normally say to be more appealing to this person. That's code switching. And so what I'll do is I'm going to put in the description box below the Harvard implicit bias test. And I hope that you'll take a couple of them. And I hope that it opens your eyes. You don't have to share it with me. You don't have to share it in the comments. If you do want to share it in the comments, you can share it in the comments, but you don't have to. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. And don't forget to hit the bell. That way you know when we have a next video coming out. You're the best. I love you guys. Have a blessed day. Love you.